Hey, Mike, what do Kelly Slater and PT have in common?
I don't know. They're both world champs?
Nope, they both own Endless Summer box set.
Oh my God, rad. You guys, you can get it too. The link's in the show notes.
On a surf, dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Fu. Trap jumping like a kangaroo.
Hey everybody, welcome to the QuiverCast, where we chat with surfers from all around the world, from all walks of life, and we get their story. Find us at www.thequivercast.com. I am Mike, your host. Let's get into the show. Hello, everybody. This is Mike here with the QuiverCast, and I got a super special guest all the way from Australia. I got a movie maker, is one of the most inspiring movies I've seen in a long time. The movie Repulse. We got Justin Gane on. How are you doing, Justin?
Hey, Mike. How you going, mate?
Good, dude. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Stoked to be on here with you.
Yes, thank you so much. So your movie Repulse, I enjoyed it. It's inspiring to being an older surfer guy, to see the guys I kind of saw back in my heyday, the guys a couple of years younger than me, ripping, but they're ripping today and you're showing it off. Like Neil Purchase Jr., that guy's part is epic. So thank you for the movie. It's excellent. Where did you come up with the idea to do Repulse?
Well, I'd had a big break off making movies for about 18 years. So I kind of had a film in mind where I could kind of blend the generations and do trips together for many years. When COVID hit, I kind of just seen a bit of a gap, thought, I'm not going to be traveling far. Maybe it's good to grab like-minded people and do a little surf trip and get the different generations together and have a bit of a good time during what was quite traumatic for a lot of people. Yeah, and make something good of it. So just seemed like a good re-entry back into surf filmmaking. I'd never stopped filming, but yeah, I just thought, here's the time to make a new film.
So let's go way back then. Is your first movie the movie Pulse? Because I remember watching Pulse back in the day.
Well, that's classic. I'm stoked you got to see it over there in the US. I didn't know if it really made it over there or not. That was in 96, but I actually made a film in 95 called Unleashed.
Oh, okay.
And that was, so that was my first film, and I shot that in 94 and 95, released that in 95. Took me 2 years to film it. And Margot, so that kind of featured, the main guys were Neil Purchase Jr. and Margot. They were my two best mates, so we were hanging out anyway, and it all come about in 93. I hurt myself, and I couldn't surf.
Wow.
And I knew I couldn't surf for a couple of months, so I grabbed my mum's tiny little handy cam.
Okay.
She gave it to me, and we just started filming the boys. Just kind of got better after a few weeks, and we used to take it in turns filming each other.
Okay.
Just to see how we looked, and on the beach, and then
like we all
after
do.
a couple of months of that, we went, geez, this is looking pretty good. Maybe I'll film more, and you guys surf more, and let's make a movie. Literally,
just started a couple buddies hanging out.
Yeah, pretty much. We all rode for Billabong back at that time, all the three of us. And there was another guy called, if you can remember him, Craig Holly. He was one of Australia's, I thought, one of the best surfers in Australia. And he was Margot's really good friend. So it was the four of us always hanging out. And that's kind of how it started, just filming around the Gold Coast of northern New South Wales. Every day we'd leave and go surfing and film.
And at what point did you go, we can get a full-length movie out of this, and I'm going to go with it?
Yeah, it was probably after about 18 months of filming. And,
okay.
Just started putting the sections together of people. It was mainly all surfers that lived up this way that I was friends with, and, Parko and Dean Morrison, and those crew were in it as well. They were about 14 years old. So they were the younger crew, and Margot and Neil were about 21 years old then. Yeah, so that's like 30 years ago, nearly.
Initially, you're probably, I'm assuming, sitting around, we're just watching videos just to like laugh at each other and like stoked on each other from like, surfing good that day or bad that day, whatever. Is that kind of how it started?
Yeah, we'd always come back and usually grab a 6-pack of beer and watch the surfing and critique each other on how we were surfing. It was just friends having fun, really. But obviously around that time, Taylor Steele's films were really, really big, and we were watching them, loved them, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But there was nothing back in that time representing Australian surfing. And Australian surfing was really waning, not getting any kind of recognition because everyone was looking up to Taylor and his crew. They were the new school guys coming through in that early 90s.
Yeah.
So I kind of felt responsible to showcase some of Australia's surfing to the world. And that's how Unleashed come about.
And then was it a success? How did people take it?
It was really well received, but it hardly made it off the east coast of Australia. I had enough money to replicate 2,000 VHS copies.
Oh, yeah.
And they sold out like in weeks, but I still didn't really have enough money to buy more. Yeah, I did a run of 2,000 and it was well received. Yeah, and then kind of because I was sponsored by Billabong, they hit me up and they really wanted to help with some trips and money for some replication and artwork for a new film. Mm-hmm. And that's how kind of Pulse was birthed.
That becoming a bigger project, are you learning about filming too at the same time?
Yeah, I had no idea about filmmaking at all. I was just shooting the action. To me, I was always into music. Like music is probably, and it still is one of the things I'm most passionate about. So I was sourcing music before I even made Unleashed, and it's always been one of my most favourite parts of making films is having that relationship with the bands and uncovering new bands as well as new surfers.
Really? Talk about that a little bit. Like, how do you pick your bands? Are these friends of yours? Are these local guys at the pub playing, or who are these?
Funny enough, some of the bands I did see just out at the local pub.
Okay.
But yeah, I was trying to source, obviously back then, just Australian music. Mm-hmm. I wanted to promote underground Australian music with underground Australian surfers. Most of the surfers in Unleashed and Pulse weren't your regular crew that were kind of in films, that were featured in films. And I just knew there was a handful of surfers that should be filmed. Yep. And it was kind of the same way with the band. So I kind of had to match the music with the surfers. I wanted to be underground. I wanted to help bands out there, be recognised, not only through my films in this country, but overseas.
So watching your film, remembering Pulse, I watched it the other day for the first time in years and years, and then watching Repulse. I mean, the music, along with the surfing, inspires you to get out and go surf. To watch the new movie, especially Repulse, I'm inspired to go. Like, it kind of gets giving me that adrenaline. Like, let's go out and do something. You know what I'm saying? Go out and surf.
I definitely always liked the hard rock kind of music. Taylor was using that new school kind of punk music, and I liked it. But I obviously didn't want to go down that path or be compared to what he was making. So I really wanted more of the hard rock kind of stuff, which is the kind of music I listen to anyway.
Okay.
So yeah, I pretty much just use a kind of nice rock, blues rock, stoner rock. All that kind of stuff, psychedelic rock.
Yeah,
that's the kind of stuff I love.
Get you going a little bit. Yeah, I love it. So going back to Pulse, so Billabong's helping you. And are you stoked on this project? Are you nervous? Like, how are you feeling?
It had its own qualms too, because they'd offered me money. They only wanted Billabong surfers. But my driving force behind making films was to promote Australian surfing. Mm-hmm. And so at first we're at loggerheads. I go, well, I can take your money, but I'm going to be promoting surfers from, it doesn't bother me who they ride for. I just want to promote good surfers, people that are good people too, people I got along with and I wanted to travel with. And so I kind of said, I can't take your money at first because I want to promote Australian surfing.
Yeah.
Anyway, they were good enough to accept that. Yeah, Pulse was born, but Billabong had a huge team anyway, so it was probably 70% Billabong surfers anyway. Their team was huge. I think it was like 200 surfers or something, and I surfed for them as well at that time. So just about most good surfers from each little town were sponsored by Billabong back then.
So they were cool. Did they have to say, hey, we'll get back to you, that we had to think about this, or was it straight up like, we're like what you are doing, so it's a yes?
it was kind of a head-to-head discussion. Like I went into their office and, they offered me, money and trips kind of thing. But the money was good to go into the replication to make sure more than 2,000 copies went out this time.
Yes.
I think Billabong must have sent the film to America. That's must have how you've seen it, because I actually never sent any films to America.
Okay.
I found it was a hard market to break. You guys are pretty patriotic back over there, especially with Taylor doing his thing. It was just a hard market to break it into, but I think Billabong submitted Pulse into the Surfer, the Surfer Awards or
Oh, okay. Is that what it was? I only knew one person that had the movie, so
classic.
that was it. It wasn't.
Probably-
it was a fluke. Maybe I saw it, but I mean, because I didn't. Because Taylor still kind of did dominate the market over here in surf films at that time, or a little before that, I think, actually.
100%. Yeah, no, he was in there in the early 90s, so must have been 91, 92 he broke into there. So that was a few years before I started filming.
In Australia, how were you marketing your film? Were you going to schools and playing in auditoriums, or were you just doing it out of the trunk of your car? How were you selling the films?
I just usually did one premiere where all the surfers went to, and pretty much half the Gold Coast. They used to be huge back then.
I bet.
Bigger than they are these days. It was a big thing to go and watch a movie live. And have 2 or 3 of the bands from the film playing. That was unreal.
Rad. Yeah.
Yeah, but as far as distribution goes, in my early days, I kind of worked out that all the money, talking to the old filmmakers, mainly Chris Bystrom took me under his wing. I kind of hung out with him a bit, did some filming in Hawaii in the early 90s, and just talking to him, and he had his distribution wrapped up. No one distributed his film but him. And he goes, Justin, if you want to make money, you need to do your own distribution, because half your money is going to be gone if someone else distributes it. So I distribute my own film by just ringing every surf shop in person, which was quite hard because I was a nobody, really.
Yeah.
But Pulse seemed to just catch on really quick, maybe with Billabong's backing and the surfers are in it. It was the first kind of film of its type, but kind of just focusing on action with good music. It caught on. But anyway, I spent months on the phone calling everybody. And then I did a trip down the whole East Coast, meeting every shop owner. And instead of like over the phone taking 2 or 3 copies, they were going, give me 6 or 10, because you'd had a 45-minute chat with them and you got to know them personally. So they took more. And then, a week later, they're going, can I have another 10? And so, I ended up in Australia selling around 6,000 units of that. So it was a lot better than Unleashed anyway.
How'd you become friends with Chris?
The day I kind of rocked up on the point with my first camera, and I just sat up next to him. He was always a really friendly bloke. And he kind of set me up. He used to have an old car battery, like straight out of a car, massive car battery with a little handle on it. He goes, buy one of these. The batteries are, $400 each, and you need 4 of those. You can buy a $100 car battery and film for 2 days.
Oh, okay.
So, Chris set me up with that, and I'd set up next to him. We'd talk all day, and he was really open to helping me. And there was another local guy called Barry Bond, and he shot surfing. He was the only other there was no filmmakers on the Gold Coast.
Okay.
So he was the only filmmaker. Those two were the 2 filmmakers on the Gold Coast, but Chris's films obviously went all around the world.
Yeah.
He's just a real nice bloke. Yeah. He told me a few secrets.
Okay, so you met him. He was kind to you. Did you know who he was, and what did you think of him?
100%. As a kid, I used to buy his films. I remember saving up for one of his films in the 80s. It was Wave of the Future.
Oh, okay.
And that must have been around 1982, 83. And I remember it cost me $69.95.
Wow.
And back then, that was huge amounts of money.
That was a lot of money.
That was a week's wage for my parents or something.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
And looking at it, Chris, was selling that film before he'd started shooting it. Like, he'd already had the cover done. And you'd send away to the money order in American money, I think it was too. And have it sent. So he was initially, I think, one of the first crowdfunders.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so
But,
inventor.
you know, he made his budget for the film before he shot it, or while he was shooting it, the money was rolling in.
Wow.
Yeah, you opened my eyes up a bit to how he did things, but it was the distribution and many other filmmakers after me around the same time as me that tried to make films similar.
Yes.
I think failed a little because they had the distribution taken off them, so profit was
Yes.
smaller. Not that I was making a lot of money
Mhm.
out of 6,000 units, but it was enough to be able to make another film, travel, and have a bit of fun along the way.
At that point, was it just about having fun and traveling?
Yeah, it was a good way to see the world and, you know, and surf waves that I'd always seen in magazines and stuff like that. Get to Hawaii and Tahiti and New Zealand and Samoa and everywhere I'd traveled. It was, kind of shooting the film. And as I was kind of surfing at the same time too. So it was a bit of a bonus.
Was there days when you were filming that you were completely jealous of your buddies out there scoring and you're videoing them? Or do you know you're going to have a window to get out there too?
No, I've never been comfortable with actually sitting there and watching my buddies have fun. People think it's the dream job, you know, but it's dangling the carrot there all day long.
All day. How do you do it?
And standing in the sun and just dripping, you know, sweat and sore back.
Sunburned?
I actually don't like shooting surfing.
Oh, really?
No, it's fun watching it at the end of the day with a couple of the beers, having a laugh and having a dig at each other. That's kind of the fun part. You know, having a laugh. But I don't particularly like standing there, especially those perfect days when it's 6 to 8 foot. You just you don't want to be missing that stuff. But they're the best days to film.
Right.
So it's a real it's not a good situation to be in sometimes.
Yeah. Well, if the lighting's bad and stuff, is that a green light for you to go out? Like, where's the setup for this is the day I shoot, this is the day, you know, I'm going to take a couple hours off and see how the fog leaves or something. I don't know. The
only time I usually got to surf is when the boys had their fill and they come in and they're really hungry.
Yeah. Okay.
And they go, we'll give Gane 20 or 30 minutes to get a couple before we go get a burger or a couple of pies or something.
Yeah.
And I'd be stiff as shit, you know, like you just fucking all stiff from filming for 3 or 4 hours. So, you know, they'd let me jump in and have a couple, and they'd usually shoot me as well, so I could have a look at myself.
Well, you got the good guys out of the water at least. A little easier to catch some waves.
Those buggers just surf for hours.
Yeah,
but, you know, I didn't mind shooting 2 to 3 foot. That's easy. I didn't really want to be surfing in those kind of waves, but when it was pumping, that was really, really horrible. A conundrum.
I'm sure it was. Then you make Pulse, which I guess is your second movie. You do. How was the premieres? You said that a lot of people showed up, but let's say your very first one. What was the feeling inside? Did you sell it out beforehand, or were you stressing the whole day? Like, is anybody going to show up? Like, having these thoughts in your head?
Not really. Nothing had been made out of the Gold Coast as far as films. Obviously, Chris was doing his, which were going international. Yeah. But there was never a film with young Aussie guys made from the Gold Coast. So a lot of the Gold Coast turned out to it. But I didn't sell any tickets. It was all free. They got to come to watch.
Oh, you're just showing it.
Yeah, there was no such thing as charging people back then. It was just a big piss up, you know. We'd, all the surfers and the bands and myself had free drinks, and it was just an all-in party night. All my premieres were the same. I never made a cent off premieres. It was only until I did Repulse that, it was ticketed.
Where was the events at? Was it at at a theater, or were you doing it in someone's backyard? What were you doing?
No, they were always in nightclubs.
Nightclubs.
That was kind of the place to do all beer gardens, that kind of stuff back in the day.
Yeah.
Did
you have to take money out of your pocket to reserve that? Or did you just go to the owner and say, we're going to sell a lot of beer tonight? Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah, I just rent a crowd. Bring the crowd in. They drink. There
you go.
Everyone drinks lots and party. So that was all on, and they would pay the bands. So I'd always make sure the bands were taken care of.
Okay.
But
so going back to your music and your bands, were some of the bands coming to you after you started getting established as a movie maker, or were you seeking these guys out?
A bit of both. I generally after Pulse, people love the soundtrack in that. They still talk about it now, the
Yeah.
soundtrack in Pulse. So after that film, I was getting a few hundred submissions a year. But
Okay.
only really picking 6 or 7
Okay.
bands. Because I always like to use more than one song, so you're not just showcasing one song for the band. So, yeah, you kind of felt like an arsehole sometimes. You get so much music coming in, a lot of good music, and a lot of stuff that wasn't suitable, obviously.
I get that.
But, you felt sorry for people that, they really wanted to be on there, but you're only picking 6 or 7 bands, so, yeah, it was hard.
Let me ask you some other questions too. Some things that people may not see. Was your dream to become a filmmaker at this point in your life? What was going on in Justin's head?
I really enjoyed it. I never thought of being a filmmaker. It was an unfortunate accident. When I hit my 20s, I kind of lost 4 fingers. I was a sign writer, a traditional sign writer too, one of the last, just before as the computers were coming in.
Wow.
And cutting signs. So I, did all the intricate, fine gold leaf stuff and truck scrolling and everything, windows and everything, gold leaf.
Okay.
That was I finished my apprenticeship in 3 years. I got really high marks in my apprenticeship and got a year taken off. And so I kind of had just set up a business, and that was going to launch on the Monday. Yeah, unfortunately, was in a motor vehicle accident and had my hand crushed. Car roll.
Way.
Landed on my hand and then slid down the road with my hand under the car.
No way.
Mangled my whole hand. So, yeah, funny. Something bad happened, but in the end, that led me to moving from the south coast of New South Wales to Gold Coast, where my mum lived, as rehabilitation, and met some surfers while I was here. And I didn't know about even how long it was going to be till I surfed again or anything like that. But when I look back, that unfortunate incident led to a whole new life, which I'd never regret. I'm glad my fingers were lobbed off.
Really? Okay.
100%, because computer signwriting was coming in. I was passionate about being a traditionalist, but there was, signwriters made a lot of money back in the 80s. Yeah, I kind of started that in 1986. But if I'd continued to be a signwriter, I wouldn't have made the money that the signwriters had made the generation before me. And basically gone from being a signwriter to a graphic designer, working with computers, designing on there, and then having a robot cut it out for you. And that didn't sit well with me as it was coming in anyway. So it was fortunate my fingers got lobbed off, really.
Wow. Okay. It opened up another door for you, is what you're saying.
Yeah, every time something unfortunate's happened in my life, something good has come of it. So
cool.
I've had a few episodes through my life with some unfortunate things, but always bounce back, try to stay positive, and look for new doors to open.
Wow, that's heavy. Did that take away from your surfing too and everything else? Did that affect? I mean, so obviously you're out for a while.
I was out of the water. They told me I'd be out of the water. I was in hospital for about 6 weeks, reconstructing my hand. I had 5 major operations, long ones, reconstructing my hand and my fingers.
Okay.
So I knew I probably wouldn't surf for 6 to 9 months, I was saying.
Wow.
And I come up here for rehab, and I rode for a guy called Ken Remus Surfboards. Mm-hmm. As I was just before my fingers got chopped off, and I was starting to become a half-decent surfer, I suppose, down on the south coast. While I was in hospital, I remember Mum bought me a TV in there and video machine, and I remember getting the first Sarge's scrapbook.
Oh, okay.
And I watched it. I was on morphine. I'm on morphine for weeks, and I was just, I don't know, I was breaking the surfing down in slow-mo because I was on the morphine, I think, and just pausing stuff and everything off my chops for 4 or 5 weeks watching that. And I think she bought in a Hawaii 5-0, Hawaii 9-1 or whatever, the Tim Bonathan movie as well.
Okay.
And so I was starting to break surfing down frame by frame, like just pausing it while I was on this morphine. And I don't know, and it was kind of snapped. I kind of moved to the Gold Coast. I went to meet my surfboard shaper, Ken Reimers, and sitting in the corner was this shy kind of bloke, and it was his brother, his half-brother, I called Jamie Costaglis. I don't know if you can remember him. Jamie was like underground legendary surfer that's kind of surfed like Tom Curran. Amazing. He was huge in the 90s. He was Billabong's main artist as well. He was the guy that designed Bad Billy's, the old skull and crossbones there.
Oh, yeah. I remember Bad Billy's for sure.
Yeah, well, he designed that in 1984 as a 14-year-old kid.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, Billabong bought that off him, I think, for $40. And I think to the day, I've heard that that's one of the biggest surf prints of all time.
I can imagine, yeah.
So, yeah, he was kind of in a dilemma himself with that whole being a good artist and also being one of the best surfers on the planet. Wow. He was kind of big around Kelly's time, Shane Herring.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I met Jamie. He was an artist. I was an artist. He'd heard the story through Kenny, my shaper. We just really clicked straight away.
Oh,
and
cool.
I remember him taking me down to a surf contest, the 4X Pro at Cabarita Beach. And there I met Neil Purchase, because Neil was also worked in the art room. And I met Neil first time. And I remember running across to the shops and getting a washing up glove and taping it to my arm. And this is like only weeks after the last operation. And I tried to get up. My fingers were still not together properly. And I couldn't get up on the board. But anyway, I hung out with Jamie, and then it was a few days later, and we went down the coast, and we had 4 to 6 foot point break, just me and him.
Wow.
And at the time, he'd had this, he kind of had this hillbilly look. He drove like a 1953, an old car.
Yeah.
FB Holden it was.
Okay.
Had a quiff like Elvis. He had like Elvis designs on his board and everything, and he had a big Stray Cat. Remember the Stray Cats logo off the band?
The rockabilly
and he
dude.
Just had the cover of and then he had the cover of Tracks that month.
Wow.
With this
okay.
classic. And so this was the time I met him, and he took me down the coast, and it was about 4 to 6 foot. Yeah, I had the surf of my life. I gone from not being able to get up.
Yeah.
Gave me this board that was on tracks, and I'd never surfed like that in my life. I was kind of blowing the tail out.
Wow.
He could recall the story better. I couldn't see myself, but I'd never surfed like that. I couldn't fall off. Kind of had glue foot that day. And I wasn't even meant to be surfing for months, and I just had the best surf of my life. But, I think that was from breaking that surfing down, all those months in hospital.
Wow.
Finally come back to me just straight away. It's like my surfing had doubled from before I'd had my fingers chopped off. So I don't know. The accident just made me a better surfer. I thought about surfing like I'd never thought about surfing before. I was starting to visualize everything.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was interesting, and
that is
pretty
super
much
interesting.
drove from this session. He kind of got out of that session. He goes, "Oh, you should be on the tour. You could be in the top 10." And I'm going, "Oh, I was just an average surfer, but I just had this good surf." Anyway, drove me straight up to Billabong and told him how I was surfing, and I got sponsored.
That's amazing. That's a trippy story. So, how often are you still surfing today? Are you surfing?
Not as much as I'd like, but I bought a farm about 25 minutes from the coast, so I've been on a shovel for the best part of a year, kind of landscaping and reshaping my land, and I'm enjoying that so much that most of the days I don't even want to go surfing unless it's like really good. I'm just enjoying this different transition in my life. Finished Repulse, haven't filmed since. Haven't filmed for nearly 2 years now. Yeah, so just enjoying something different in my life.
Yeah, no, I totally get that.
Still surf the bigger days, and I plan on this year to be a bit of a comeback for my surfing. Because I haven't surfed much for 3 years now, but I'm used to not surfing, being a filmmaker, so it doesn't really affect my surfing.
Really? Okay,
I tend to surf. Tend to surf pretty good straight up first.
Surfing a while, and
I don't know. I just
ripping.
I just visualize. Like when I'm out in the farm, I'm visualizing surfing a certain wave.
And that's
I just close my eyes.
Really?
If you can close your eyes and surf well on an imaginary wave, like surf it well, You can do it in real life, but sometimes you'll close your eyes and you'll picture an 8-foot wave or something and you're just uncoordinated. It's like there's something different in your brain. And if you do that, you'll go surfing and you're uncoordinated. But if you can surf well and imagine surfing well, you will surf well. It kind of helps with your balance. And I don't know. I've always kind of done that since that unfortunate accident, with my fingers. I've always visualized surfing, and I haven't surfed that much in the last 30 years. But I don't need to. I don't think so.
That whole thing's fascinating because I think you're right. But I mean, I have bad surf days and the days that I'm surfing pretty good. And it's like, basically you're saying this all in my head. So if I just took the time and imagine what I want to do, it's going to happen?
100%. I think one of the best things to do is just sit down on the beach, even if it's like 3 inches high. Sit close to it and imagine that it's 4 or 5 foot and what you would do to that little wave. Or it doesn't matter how big or small the wave is. You can visualize what kind of turns or you would like to draw on that, that wave, the lines you want to draw.
Wow.
And that just helps with your balance, I think.
Okay. No, it totally makes sense. I think I'm just usually like want to get out there real quick.
Yeah. No, I'm not talking about on a good day. I'm talking about where you wouldn't go surfing. When the surf's so crap you can't surf it. But yeah, even just watching a surf movie and not watching the actual surfer, kind of staring at the wave, almost like out of focus and drawing your own lines on that wave.
That's
not watching the surfer. I kind of do that as well.
Okay. You figured this out just purely on accident, just because you were injured and out of the water. It's changed your whole surfing life from that point on. Yeah,
that accident definitely changed my life for the better.
For the
100%.
better.
It changed where I live, the friends that I have, and the job I've done,
Right on.
Would have never been a filmmaker without that.
So let's go way backwards, back to Pulse and even to Repulse today. Your focus is 100% on Australian surfers.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much, because I've generally hanging with them. I kind of didn't know any American surfers. Obviously, I got some favourites there. Obviously, Curran and Gerlach and Kelly. I like all the American surfers, but I've never, got to know them and never really shot with them. But I really felt I needed to promote Australian surfers anyway. They were
100%.
It only got to the point where at Parko's generation where they really kicked into gear. And
like Taj and all those guys, kind of like
Taj and all that guy. And I kind of hoped that I'd kind of kick-started that a bit at the beginning, having underground Aussie surfers promoted. And that kind of led to that kind of charge of Australians winning world titles years later.
Okay.
6 or 7 years down the track, they were starting to... Mick and Joel emerged. They were only grommets in my first films. It encouraged other young filmmakers in Australia too to come along. So there was a whole bunch of us shooting underground Aussie surfers that end up becoming our top ones.
How tough is the market for films, surf-specific films in Australia? Like you kind of were the first guy on the Gold Coast, you said.
Yeah.
Did the guys come up behind you, become your competition, or how did you feel about other filmmakers?
I think all the filmmakers have always supported each other.
Right. Okay,
probably
cool.
A little less cliquey than photographers who tend to have a go at each other a bit. Back in the day, they used to. They're kind of a little bit more temperamental, but I always felt like the filmmakers supported each other. I know I did. I thought the competition's a healthy thing.
Cool.
That if they're helping make Australian films bigger, then that's only going to be good for all of us. So,
now, what about getting in the editing room and all that? Like, were you the only guy doing it? Did you get some help?
Yes, I definitely had no clue what I was doing. They actually unleashed. I edited myself. I had no idea what I was doing, so I got a VHS machine. It was all mathematical, so I had to have it worked out on paper. The song length, the waves written down to the kind of into about quarter of a second. And mathematically work out which waves I'm going to use and if they'll fit within the song. So it'd take weeks. And then I used it, record, pause method. So I'd go record, stop, pause it, and then find the next wave on another VHS machine. And I actually edited Unleashed like that. Took me 4
Wow.
months.
Oh, imagine.
So I had no idea. And then when I come to Pulse, I had this bloke called Michael come up. And he goes, I found a way to edit on a domestic computer.
Okay,
And I know
cool.
people were using studios back then, your Jack McCoys, and I'm sure
Yeah.
Taylor had a better setup than I did, but he'd souped up this machine, it had it all, ripped it apart, and was all open. And I kind of remember that he going, I've got this SCSI drive. It just came out 2.2 gig. It was the biggest drive in the world. 2.2
Wow.
gig.
Yeah. Was nothing now.
So that's all the computer had. So that was just enough to get out to about a 3.5 minute song back then. So I had to pick my songs so they weren't too long. And it took us months to edit in his bedroom. We edited Pulse and Pulse 2 on this thing. So you would finish your section, turn the section around so it's one file, and then exit it to tape, and then erase the computer and then start the next one.
Oh, that's
And
funny.
so once I'd stitched about 17 sections together, I'd head up to a studio where most people would edit a film, and then stitch the film together, work out, Margot's sections here and Percho's is here, and here's the intro and the wipeout section.
Yeah.
It was a mathematical nightmare. but I suppose I did know what I was doing, but also I always did everything the hard way. I suppose I learned from that.
Of course. So how different was doing Repulse?
Well, totally different. I think
Completely.
my first film I ever edited was Margot's film in 2003, Vondiar. I don't know if you've seen Vondiar. It was my first surf
haven't.
documentary. I had an editor, a really good friend called Lincoln. He was in one of the original bands from the first film, and they were called Load. They were from the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
And
I remember
he
Lord.
was the guitarist from that, and he bought this computer after Pulse 2 off this Michael character, Michael Grasser.
Okay.
They're a real eccentric guy. And anyway, Grasser sold it to Lincoln, and Lincoln goes, I want to edit your new film. What are you making? And that was Odyssey. So
Okay, yeah.
obviously the drives had got quicker, and the computer now was more souped up since Pulse.
Yeah,
so
totally.
every year everything was getting a little bit easier, a little less stressful, probably spending less time on the computer. So it was fantastic. Lincoln edited about, I think, 5 or 6 of my films.
Okay, cool.
Without his help, he charged me hardly anything. We'd spend,
Wow.
we'd work till 2 or 3 a.m. every night, 7 days a week for 3 months. And he did
Any
my
of the
films.
guys?
Oh, yeah, all the guys. So going back to Unleashed, Pulse, everything, all the surfers.
Yeah.
Well, not all the surfers, but most of the main guys in the film came and edited their own sections.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
they had a hand in it. That's cool.
They were part of the direction, so they worked out which ways went into it. Sometimes I thought that wave was warranted, and they'd go, no, I don't like it. I didn't like their style or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes we'd have more than just me and the surfer. Sometimes we'd have a third person sit in,
Kind of judge.
extra
between
set
you
of
two?
eyes. Yeah, judge the wave if it was good enough and everything. Kind of, I had
That's
everything.
interesting.
I've still got all my books. It's got the timing, the surfer, the turn, the length that I'm going to edit into the section, the score out of 10, the size of the wave. It's got everything. So now when I want to find stuff, I can been able to find everything really quick because I have a log of every wave ever ridden that's worthy.
Yeah, actually, so you have an initial editing too, where you just gotta throw away 10 waves to get that one wave, right?
Oh, 100%. It's probably 100 waves to get one good one.
Right. Let's stick with Repulse for now. You got a lot of the older guys, let's say middle generation surfers, the guys in their 40s, 30s, and even into their 50s.
Yeah, like it.
By the way, are my inspiration to get out there and surf better. You know what I mean? The Neil Purchases and even Matt Hoy and all those guys getting out there.
Yep.
Did you contact them like, hey, let's go shoot? Were they all cool with it? Or were some of them like, I haven't surfed in a couple of weeks, I'm going to pass? Like, how'd that go?
Definitely over the years, I was discussing if I'd make another one, and I really wanted to film with the original crew. And some people obviously didn't want to. They didn't think they were good enough anymore, or didn't want to be ridiculed, on a film. But in the end, everyone come to the party, really. I remember one guy, pretty much
love it.
one of my favourite surfers, Trent Munro. I was talking to him for a couple of years, and he goes, I don't want to be on a new film. You know, I'm an old bloke. Like I'd rather a young guy take over my place. I don't want to take up minutes on your film for some old hairy bearded dude.
Yeah.
And I'm
I understand what he's saying.
But like I said, it's not about you taking time off someone.
No.
I
get that too.
I kind of want to mix the generations together. So I felt like there was this division between young and old, like, oh, he's old, and you know, all their generation, you know, because they've been raised on the internet, are just watching what is on, you know,
30-second Instagram.
30-second Instagram. They weren't getting to see old stuff. So in our generation, your and our generation, we had our heroes, which were always the generation before us.
Yeah.
And you idolised them. You tried to surf like them. You can see it in all our styles.
Yeah.
The way we surf is usually has something to do with the person we always looked up to. And I felt like they were one of the first generation that kind of didn't idolise the generation before them so much, in my eyes anyway, because they have to self-promote themselves. So the first, you know, back in our day, you would be friends with a photographer or a video guy and they'd promote your surfing for you. But all of a sudden, this generation had to promote themselves. They had to toot their own horn.
That's true. Never thought of that.
And so they had less time to kind of look up and study or idolise the generation before them or generations before them. So I thought it was a great opportunity for them to hang out with us, not just to see it, like obviously on Pole Surf, that's the driving force for me to getting that account up and going was for that generation to see it. But with this filming, to actually hang out together, to have 3 or 4 generations in one house, hearing discussions and talks and having this mutual respect for each other as human beings, really. So that was the driving force behind Repulse, really. And, you know, didn't want obviously the older guys too going, oh, the young guys, you know, they got no respect or this or that. We really wanted that mutual respect both ways for young and old.
Yeah. Obviously, all these guys still surf, the young guys and the older guys. Obviously, they were respectful of each other, as you said, but were they driving off each other in their surfing when they're surfing next to each other? Were they...
Oh, 100%. But so we'd be set up on the beach. They're all swapping boards and looking at the board designs. And
cool.
Obviously, we're riding bigger boards and, you know, asking questions about what we were riding when we were their age. And a lot of these kids, some of my best friends' kids.
Mm-hmm.
So they know, but they kind of didn't know. And it was great to be able to, you know, swap boards and talk and hang out. And I said, become friends, have that mutual respect. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And I'm sure it drove the surfing a little higher too. It gave him inspiration. Like Trent just got a great wave. I got to go and whatever, you know.
Certainly put a rocket up the old guys' asses, that's for sure. I think the older guys are obviously more powerful. They're heavier, you know, not doing airs and everything like that. So their power turns are on point. And so that's an inspiration to the younger guys. And vice versa, you know, seeing those,
of course,
the speed of the young guys and the incredible turns they do that we have, you know, we've never been able to do was great. So it pumped everyone up. It was fantastic.
Yep, there's the word pumped. Yeah. But what I noticed too is watching them almost back to back. Some of the older guys, in my opinion, maybe I'm just old and I want to surf still like really good, is the older guys, they're of course, because they're older and their body has changed, surf a little differently. But I almost think in some regards they're surfing better, or at least to me, it's more appealing to watch.
Yeah, they're drawing definitely
different lines,
smoother, longer lines.
Yeah.
You're smoothing your surfer out. You're not so hyper as you were when you were in your 20s.
Yeah, when you're 21.
The other thing is too, it looks like they're surfing good, and they are surfing good, if not better.
Yeah.
You do half a dozen good turns and you come in with a sore back.
Of course.
You know, you're old. So you're trying to draw those longer lines, and riding bigger waves is obviously easier when you're in your 50s.
And the different equipment they're riding today. So In many of the parts, they're all switching their boards up and they're riding different equipment. Still ripping. It was really refreshing to watch, actually.
We're riding such easy equipment to ride compared to those ridiculous things we're riding in the 90s.
18-inch wide and six sixes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, just full, like semi-guns, really, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they went incredible. Like I rode 17 and 5/8 by 6.1. 6.1 was a short board, but then I moved to 6.3. I remember Margot getting up me, so you said the surfing wasn't smooth enough, so I started riding a 6.3 pintail under his influence. But everyone was riding those 6.1s to 6.3s. Margot's and Percho's shortboards were probably wider than everyone else's back then. They were considered boats, but they were probably 18 3/4 or something, and they were 6.4 to 6.5, their shortboards.
Yeah.
But, it's got to 6 foot, and Margot was on 6.10s.
Did the guys come in for Repulse and watch their parts too?
Yeah, they definitely.
Everyone did.
Yeah, everyone did, definitely, especially the young guys. It was fantastic sitting
like
in with
Connor
them.
O'Leary. Like, how good's his part in that movie, in the new movie?
Well, I didn't even hang out with Connor. It was a funny story, actually. Rocked up with another filmmaker, top bloke from Lennox Head. And I've got all the boys out there. There's Trent and Cans and Neil and just had a bunch of us down on this break wall. And Connor's ran out like a kid. He goes, "Is that Sean Cansdell? Don't tell me that's Sean Cansdell." He's like a grommet, sound like a grommet. And I said, "Yeah, that's Sean." Yeah. And he's like trying to put his suit on as quick as he could. He goes, "He's my favourite surfer." He's like, "That's who I had on my wall when I was a grommet." And it was just so good. And he just went out there and destroyed every wave. That's all shot in like an hour. His section is he just destroyed everybody. I'd never actually seen anyone, I think, live surf that fast. Pretty fast turns, aren't they, in his section? He's just whipping it.
It's a great section. It's like phenomenal. Especially if now you're telling me it was in such a short period. It wasn't over like weeks or anything. It's amazing.
No, that was shot in an hour. He was on fire.
Oh, right on.
And so I didn't personally hang out with Connor. I called him a few times, and I wished we had, because I can imagine how amazing his section would look if I'd got to film with him half a dozen times. That guy's a freak. But it was obviously great having Sean there too. I hadn't shot with Sean since 2000. He was like 16 years old last time I'd shot with him.
Wow.
All of a sudden he's a 37-year-old, surfboard shaper, rarely surfing. He was a little bit on the chubby side, not surfing much.
Well, we all get that way.
But the feedback I got off Sean's section was probably the best of the whole film. It kind of surprised me, but everyone was talking about Sean's section. And he was right. He didn't even have his own surfboard for that. He drove to Ballina and picked up a surfboard he'd just shaped for a friend or something.
Oh, wow.
And he was riding those big wedgie waves on I can't remember, it was like a 5-6 fish kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just tearing on it.
Just killing. Did you have a favorite person to film with over the years? Is there one in particular? Like,
obviously Margot, as you can tell from, I've done 13 films, and he always featured in all the films. He's lovely to surfer to watch. Definitely one of the best stylists in the world, I think.
Yeah.
And always Trent Munro for me. I hung out with Trent. He's definitely one of my best mates. I just love his just unbridled aggression, just raw. For him, he didn't ever worry about style. He just wanted to kill a wave. But filming with him, I just like his personality, like hanging out with him, not surfing. But we would do a lot of trips just alone, and you'd have 2-3 days to film him, and he would do his whole section. He'd go, right, we've got 3 days, let's do it. And nearly every wave Trent surfed was just so on rail.
Worthy to be on there, huh?
I think he's one of the most on rail surfers in the history of surfing. Very aggressive. So filming with Trent was always a favourite. I wish I'd got to film with him more in Repulse, because I know what he can do.
Yeah.
I only filmed with him for an hour really for that.
Okay, just a little bit of time.
Yeah, I'd still like to go film with him. Just the whole idea of the film too was, I've always power surfing was the big thing in my films. That's kind of what I want
Yeah,
the surfers to do. That's what I'm into, because I was a big fan of all the 70s and 80s guys and the lines they drew. And Tom Carroll was always my hero. And
That's your guy?
Yeah, as a kid.
Okay.
It was different when I moved up here, but hang out, started to really appreciate hockey, obviously, like every goofy footer. It definitely become one of my favourite. But as a child, it was always Tom Carroll, Tom Curran, Gerlach, Potts, all the regular crew.
Yeah,
all the power surfers. When I got into filmmaking, I kind of went, I just want heaps of power surfing, especially in the 90s. I'm going, don't worry about the airs, because surfers would try 50 airs before they pull one, not like these days. Don't worry about the airs, just do what you do. Because I liked hanging out with power surfers.
What did you notice different besides the airs of the younger generation and the older guys, especially when they're side by side surfing?
Definitely how fast they can turn a board, how fast they can pivot on a board. They draw a shorter line, like almost a power stab, kind of just changing direction so fast. Guys like Dakota Walters, he's just mind blowing. That guy, kind of that speed Taj had, like when Taj came onto the scene. He's kind of like the new Taj, but he's got so much power for such a skinny little guy. He's so skinny.
How old's that guy? Not very old.
Dakota must be around 22 or 21 now.
Yeah,
21,
it says
I guess.
it on the thing. Yeah.
But when we were shooting that, I go, how heavy are you? He goes, 47 kilos. It's 47 kilos. The old blokes would just go, how is the power on that guy? So much power just because of the speed that he carries through his turns.
Is he a tall kid?
Yeah, he's around 6 foot, I reckon, 5'11", 6 foot.
Okay.
So he's almost as tall as Margot. But, Margot will weigh in at 90 to 100 kilos. And Neil's always about 100 or so kilos.
Yeah.
And there's Dakota at half that weight. But just,
That's funny.
But Taj was like that. He was a kind of skinny little runt with a lot of power.
Yeah.
Dakota's speed. All those young guys blew me away.
How do you distribute your movie Repulse? How do you find that movie? Is it are you selling DVD still, or is it just strictly online? You get it.
I've got it on DVD actually, and funny enough, the DVD has outsold online.
Really? Do you want my observation on it, or what I think
of
possibly?
Course. 100%.
So here's what I think, and this is from my perspective because I'm on Instagram like you guys are. Everyone's on Instagram. Which your Pulse on Instagram is probably one of my favorite accounts. So
Thanks,
when
mate.
I come across it, it's like always scoring the best surfing. But with that being said, I was so accustomed to seeing 30-second clips. I'm just like all the other animals out there that I forgot how good a surf movie is. Once I watched Repulse, I'm super stoked on surf movies again. It's been years.
Thanks, mate.
Since I've. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Well, that was the reason why I made it so long. Because a movie these days, if it's half an hour, is long. So I just went, I'm going the complete opposite way. I'm going to make the longest film I've ever made that demands your attention.
And it brought back all the memories of being a teenager and watching a surf movie.
That's exactly what I wanted out of it, Mike.
It's really good. You can purchase it on Vimeo, right? How do you get it in America?
Yeah, DVD, obviously you can't. So in Australia, we have what you call all zone players. So we can play your NTS zone ones over here, but it can't be reversed. Your DVD players over there won't play our DVDs from here. So when someone from America says, and I have sold quite a few DVDs because people just want to put it on the shelf, even though they can't.
Yeah,
they just want to have it in their collection, even though they can't play it. And when you buy the DVD, you get the movie for free anyway on Vimeo.
Have you premiered the movie here, or you've thought about premiering the movie possibly in America so the Americans can see it?
I definitely would love to have the film premiere over there. I haven't got around to it, but it was really busy with the premieres over here. But yeah, anyone that's keen or got any ideas over there or any venues or theatres, if anyone hears this and would really like to play the film, please contact me.
Rad.
Yeah, I'd be stoked for America to see this film for sure.
Yeah, cool. They can just email you, and I'll put the email in the show notes too.
Thanks, mate. That'd be awesome. Be stoked.
Your movie can definitely inspire you to get out there and go surf.
Yeah, cheers,
at the end of the
Mike.
day, that's what I I really appreciate your movie.
Oh, thanks, mate.
So-
I really like watching other people's surf movies too. There's been some great surf movies out there the last few years.
And I do like the kids. I've interviewed a couple of these younger kids that have great 9-minute, 10-minute edits. They're fabulous, and they tell a story.
Oh, they're epic.
But they're not a full surf movie, and they're not getting me pumped up to go surf.
It's really hard.
As much.
It's really hard to put that time, or if you're a young kid, you haven't got the budget to make a film anyway.
No.
Like it's fantastic. The good thing about doing what they do is seeing things as it happens. Like,
Yeah.
I was saying, I'd have to send me $69.95 away and wait 9 months for it to come in the mail.
Yeah.
But I mean, in my whole town, I was probably the only guy that ever owned it. And it was kind of like a leg up to becoming a better surfer because I owned that film.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what
100%.
surf coaching was. Surf coaching was owning a surf film back
It was
then.
watching film.
I remember I listened to Shane's thing the other day, and he talked about the Bells contest. And funny enough, I was the only person I thought in the town, or out of my friends, that was managed to tape that, because VHS had just came out and it was all flaky and fuzzy. I could just get the reception on ABC, and I filmed that heat with Ockie and Curran
On VHS. Yeah.
and I didn't tell anyone that I had it, and I watched it and watched it and watched it for about 2 weeks, and I turned up the board riders. It was kind of a guy that the guys that taught me to surf were always in the final of the local board riders, and I'd only ever make the quarters or maybe semis on a good day. And I rocked up to this contest and just annihilated everybody because I had this tape. And to me, that's the original surf coaching. You coached yourself by watching surfing, and the next best step was obviously being filmed. I was lucky my grandpa had a video camera and filmed me and my mates a couple of times around 1982, 83.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Complete kooks back then, learning. But it's amazing seeing yourself surf. I think that's why these kids learn so quick, because everything's getting filmed, and they just learn 10 times faster than our generation did. They're
surfing 10 times better, really. I mean,
exactly.
Quicker. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's fantastic.
I like our generation personally, but
everything just happens slower. The learning curve of everything is the most fun, not just with surfing, with everything that you learn. The beginning of something is the best.
Yeah.
And I think they miss out on that a little bit. Everything just happens fast. It's all of a sudden, boom, they're there.
Yeah.
It took us 10 years to get there.
It did. I mean, I'm still trying today.
Took me 10 years to do my first floater, probably. 6 years to do my first re-entry or something. Coming from the South Coast, you didn't even really have great, incredible surfers around. You'd never seen a pro surfer. So everything took so long. The only people we learned off were our friends. And so if you had friends that were better than you, then you were learning from them.
That's, of course, the guys that ripped in the lineup, those are the guys you're looking at.
Yeah, exactly.
I was a little scared of those guys, by the way, personally.
Yeah, you couldn't paddle
They're 10 years older and dicks.
You had to stay away from them, didn't you?
Yeah, well, they were getting all the good ways, so I didn't want to be right next to them anyhow.
Yeah, they'd always send you down the beach or to the inside when I started.
Yeah. So go way back. Do you remember your first surf movie you ever watched, and what was it? Do you remember?
I do, actually. And I think it would have been 1982. Okay. And I'm sure it was Follow the Sun. So there would be movies that toured, and they would come to the local bowling club in Bateman's Bay.
Okay.
And I remember seeing Follow the Sun, and I remember seeing Tubular Swells. So it was one of those two. But they were the first two films I seen. And every surfer and their parents would usually go and watch it. Yeah.
So it was a family thing.
Yeah, it was my first experience with surf films were people standing up in their chairs when someone got a semi cover up, and just screaming with their hands in the air.
Wow.
Like it was such a vibe. Once VHS came out, that was the equivalent of the internet.
Yes, it was.
All that kind of hype, crowd participation and community spirit disappeared when the tours stopped filming. I stopped touring. Yeah, I don't know. That was the best it ever was. My first few films, definitely. And probably the year after I seen that film, I said I bought that, started buying films off Bystrom and Benighton.
Yeah. What was your favorite Bystrom film?
Definitely the first ones, obviously, because that was when I was a kid, like Wave of the Future, probably.
Okay.
Occy does that big air at D-Bar, big grab rail air, and I don't think anyone had ever done an air on a closeout like that. You remember that?
What movie was that in?
Wave of the Future.
So
he would have been young too, maybe 20.
Yeah. So yeah, he was super young. But okay, so that's. I want to say that's like Beyond Blazing Boards.
When we get off this thing, I've obviously digitized everything. I'll get Ocky's Wave and I'll send it to you. You wait till you get
I know exactly what you're talking about, but okay.
Yeah,
Blazing. No, I believe.
Maybe Blazing Boards was first. Maybe Blazing Boards was one of the first ones I bought.
Because I'm pretty sure it was Beyond Blazing Boards that part's in. But I was wondering if they titled it differently there, but I guess they didn't. That was my question.
It could be. I'll have to go through my catalogue here and work that out. I bought every surf film. I was a surf film Nazi. Like, I'd have parties on the South Coast. I live in this like little rainforesty bush thing, a place called North Rosedale, and Shane Wynn lived at South Rosedale. We would meet, had our own private beach to surf on back there in the late 80s. So I had these party in the late 80s, and all the surfers from the area would come to my house in this tree house on the deck, and I'd put a TV out there, and we'd have these big surf movie nights. Because they stopped.
Oh, cool.
Because when VHS came out and all that, and I was in my teens, there was no touring movies, so it'd always be at my house. We'd just have these raucous parties.
Wow, fun.
We used to have this thing going after the movie. We'd just go, short hair versus long hair, and everyone would run into the bush and beat each other up. So if you had short hair, you'd look for a long hair and just take him out.
Yeah, he'd grab his hair.
They'd turn into fistfights. Like they'd turn quite brutal.
Yeah. That's funny.
Depending on how your hair was, depending on who you were fighting. But yeah, they were fun parties.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. Good times. Yeah. Right on. Well, thank you so much for coming on the QuiverCast.
Mate,
Justin, I really appreciate it.
It's been my honor, mate. It's been great talking to you.
All right, everybody. This is Mike and Justin Gane, and we are out of here. Thank you, Justin, for coming on.
Mate, it's been my pleasure. It's been really good talk to you today, mate.
Super fun. Thank you. All right, everybody. Later.
100 foot out, Joe Poo. 100 racks on a surf, dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Fu. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. 100 foot out, Joe Poo. 100 racks on a surf, dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Fu. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. You know we don't fuck with no kooks. Your boo on my didgeridoo. They calling me dude, I'm stacking the loot. I'm ripping your chick in the coop. She grabbing a hold of my leggy. They jelly, they Gucci my weddy. The fridge of Giuseppe, the chain is so heavy, she think that I'm charging the Eddie. 100 foot out, Joe Poo. 100 racks on a surf, dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Fu. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. 100 foot out, Joe Poo. 100 racks on a surf, dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Fu. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. Surf trap, I'm stacking that money. Your shorts a red Ferrari. He starts to calling me Dundee. Diamonds are surfing McFlurry. She want me to teach her to surf. Splash. I'm pulling up, ripping the verse. I'm leaving these kooks in the hearse. They get moved 100 foot on their head, they get work. 100 foot out, Joe Poo. 100 racks on a surf, dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Fu. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. 100 foot out, Joe Poo. 100 racks on a surf, dude. Slippery, big guns like Mark Fu. Trap jumping like a kangaroo. You know we don't fuck with no kooks. You know we don't fuck with no kooks. You calling me dude, I'm stacking the loot. I'm ripping your chick in the coop. You know we don't fuck with no kooks. You know we don't fuck with no kooks. They calling me dude, I'm stacking the loot. I'm ripping your chick in the coop.
Hey, you guys, Endless Summer box set. This thing is legit. It's authentic, numbered certificate in it. It has a 5-frame film strip from the original print. You will literally own a piece of history. It has a specially minted bronze medallion. Dude, that thing's sick. Okay, there's so much more here. Go to the show notes. There's a link on there. Go check this piece of history out. This thing's rad. Seriously. Smithsonian American History Museum has it. It took 4 years of research with 3.5 in production, all hand assembled. This thing's rad. So much to this awesome box set. Remastered DVD, sharper images than the original film, but dude, this thing's so sick. Link in the show notes.